don't normally intro my videos, but I am going to do it for this video because context is required, and I need to say that I did not expect to have such a productive conversation with just some random Muslim kid on the server, on the politics server. He was recommended that I speak to him from somebody else, so I called up Leafy, the person in the video, and we were able to make more progress in a 1-hour conversation than I have with anyone else in the past month. I need to share one bit that I didn't get recorded because I only started recording about 30 minutes into our conversation. What Leafy was able to do with me in a conversation was he was able to, first of all, point out fallacious reasoning in my definition of the supernatural. I described the supernatural ever since I deconverted from Christianity to be anything that goes against or breaks the laws of nature. Leafy correctly pointed out to me that that would mean a new scientific discovery under my definition would be supernatural. For example, if we were to discover a new way under naturalistic explanation to surpass the speed of light, even though we currently understand the speed of light to be insurpassable, then I would consider that to be supernatural under my definition. And he's right. That is supernatural under my definition. And I need to think of a new definition. And he gave me one, which was a Quranic definition according to him. He said that the supernatural is anything that exhausts a naturalistic explanation. And that's why Moses turning a stick into a snake would be supernatural and impossible to explain by science ever, no matter what. There's no naturalistic explanation to that. So, for example, to the people before Isaac Newton invented calculus and gravity, graphing things mathematically would be considered under my definition to be supernatural. He pointed it out to me, and he's right. But the second thing, the most important thing, this happened in the video. On this timestamp right here. At this point of the video, Leafy provided an actual methodology in order to confirm whether or not it is reasonable to believe that the supernatural can actually occur. An actual methodology. Ever since I renounced Christianity, I have maintained the position that the supernatural has no methodology. When someone makes a truth claim that is supernatural, for example, I saw a ghost, there is no methodology in order to prove that happened, other than to just have faith in eyewitness testimony. But at that timestamp, Leafy gave me a actual methodology which is individual based on the person and will be a perfect definition to run with for why you would believe in the supernatural and someone else wouldn't. But I'm going to stop my little intro now and we'll start the video now.
F equals ma, like you could imagine there was a constant in front of it. You could imagine it was F equals 3ma, and that would be true in some possible universe. Like, I have to conceive of the whole universe for that to be the case. I'm just saying that F equals ma is not true in all scenarios. I can imagine a scenario where it's not true.
But you can? Like, what would you think? Like, where F equals mass times acceleration?
Yeah.
Well, like what?
Yeah, like for example, like I'll explain to you. Like, imagine we have alternate universe. Like, let's jump from our universe to another universe, and in this universe, their Earth, let's call it like Earth 2, they have, instead of gravity like being 9.8 meters per second squared, it's doubled. It's like 18 or 19 meters per second squared. What's the issue? I can conceive of that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no absurdity. There's no contradiction. There's nothing. It's completely possible. So then, if that's true, that it is possible, why would I say then G equals like 9.8 meters per second squared is like necessary? It's not. It just happens to be the case on our Earth. Do you get what I mean?
I get what you mean. So I know the point that you're trying to make, although I think that the example that you used isn't analogous, because under the Earth 2, where gravity is actually 18 meters per second rather than 9.1 or like 9.2 meters per second, that is still under the equation that like gravity equals mass times acceleration, but it's just
No, but
under.
I'm saying
It's just
the
like
equation changed.
yeah, no, well,
I'm saying the equation changed.
you say that the number changed, like gravity moved from 9 to 18, which is
No,
the
no, no.
set.
I'm saying the equation changed. No. The number is just a result. But
So I just
the actual equation
real
itself
quick
changed because we put a constant there.
the point that I'm making is like I understand the point that you were trying to make. It's just like making gravity bigger still implies like the same equation just with a bigger integer or what's it called, like a different. But still, I know. Yeah, I do know the point that you're trying to make though. But it's just like if you were to make the point more analogous, what was it?
Yeah, that's fine. But by the way, Bubba, like I can, like scientists know this. By the way, like that's why when like scientists like Lawrence Krauss or whatever, they're doing like their physics and they're trying to figure out, okay, what's the laws of our universe? They actually create like they write different formulas for different universes and they try and see which one best describes ours. That's actually how they do it. So even they themselves like are indirectly saying like these laws are contingent. Like we're just trying to mix and match and trying to guess and see which laws is actually going to best correspond to ours and which ones are not. That's actually what they try and do. Do you get what I mean? So don't get too stuck up on the analogy. I'm just trying to explain to you that it could be the case that gravity, because by the way, that law is not like accurate in all circumstances. Like you know this, but I'm just using it as an example.
Yeah. I was trying to move from the point quickly, but it's just like I think we've stuck too much on it. It's like we agree, and I actually also agree with the definitions that you said earlier about like contingent truth versus the necessary truth. Like Bubba's shirt is red, and that's contingent on the fact that Bubba's wearing a red shirt or that he's wearing any shirt at all. And which I'm not going to reveal anyway. But the 2 plus 2 equals 4 is necessary. And the point that I was making earlier that maybe we should make sure that we're understanding each other on is when I say that 2 plus 2 is 4, that is necessary under the way that we have described the laws of mathematics as they are. Do we agree on this? I'm pretty sure we brought it up earlier.
Yeah, we agree, but it's just under the axioms that we both share. Like, for example, like the Peano axioms is like specifically the ones that we use for like arithmetic, and under those axioms which we both share, then yes, 2 plus 2 equals 4. But if we change the axioms, then it's no longer true. But we agree on the axioms.
Yeah, so we agree on everything so far.
Yeah, sure. But like, so what I wanted more to get into with you, I guess, Bubba, is because you're a deist, so and you had like some type of critique of the Abrahamic God. So if you wanted to like try and give me like, okay, what's your best reason for not believing in the Abrahamic God, or if there's specifically some issue you have with Islam, I can try and help you out.
Specifically, so the thing is, internally, I understand like the methodology that you have in order to determine whether or not something supernaturally can occur. You've described it to me, and so, like, for example, you consider Muhammad to be absolutely reliable, of course, there's no questioning that, which is why you take the entire Quran to be true, and all the supernatural miracles as he describes them are true. However, what that would make my belief is simply an external critique on Islam, because I don't consider the reliability of a person to be, like, the ultimate decider of whether or not a supernatural occurrence really happened. And it's just
but neither do I.
Neither do you.
Neither do I, by the way.
Neither do you. It's like, well,
yeah. So I'll explain to you, Bubba. So I think you think like we're just trusting Muhammad, like, oh, Muhammad said this, therefore like we're going to believe him. No, it's not like that. So for example, Umar is the second caliph of Islam, and he narrates a hadith. It's a very famous hadith. It's in Imam Nawawi's 40 hadiths, and it's the second one, right after the one about intentions. And he narrates from him that there was a man who came to the Prophet, and this man, he was wearing white, and he didn't have the marks of someone who had traveled, because back then, if you travel, people know you. Like, you have some dust on you, or your fingernails will be outgrown, or you have some marks that show us that you've traveled, right? This man didn't have any of these marks, and he came and he sat with the Prophet, right? And he asked him these questions. He asked him, explain to me what is the religion, and he explained to him the 5 pillars. And he asked him, explain to me what is the pillars of faith, and he explained to him the pillars of faith. Then he asked him, explain to me what are the signs of the end times. And then he explained to him some of the signs of the end times, like the famous ones you've heard about, like the Bedouins competing with each other, building tall buildings, etc., etc. Right? And then at the end of the hadith, Umar says, "I asked the Prophet, who was this man?" And then he said, that was the angel Gabriel coming in the form of a man to teach you your religion. So Umar is narrating, and not just Umar, by the way, a bunch of other companions, tens of them, are narrating with authentic chains that they saw a man, not just in one hadith, in multiple hadith, that they saw a man who had no marks of, who they didn't know, like a complete outsider, they didn't know, who came in and asked the Prophet about his religion, and he interacted with the Prophet, and then the Prophet testified that this man is an angel. Right. So what's going on here? I'm not accepting that he's an angel just because Muhammad said so. No, I'm accepting it because Omar, as well as all the people in the mosque, saw this man, right, come, and then they never saw him again. And then they never saw him again. There's actually other times when they did see him, right, or they interacted with him,
Right.
right,
Uh-huh.
and he's presented as an angel. So it's not on the basis of one man. I think that's
Right.
what you're trying to understand, Bob.
Yeah. So right under this, the way that you describe the hadith, and how come you say that this must be the case that it was an angel? The angel Jibril came down in the form of a man. This is exactly what happened because these dudes said it. But what cannot be the case? It's impossible that this is just a random man who walked up to them, spilled some wisdom on them, and left. Like a regular man. It had to.
No, but I'm not. That's the thing, because okay, let's run with your hypothesis. Okay, it could be some random man, and like the prophet is like playing tricks, and he's like bribed him. Okay, you're gonna come, you're gonna pretend to be the angel Gabriel, right? Okay, so how do these people? Because where would Muhammad get this man from?
Where would he get the man from?
Yeah, where would he get the man from? Because back then they had communities, bro. So you have to understand. Me in my community, let's imagine Bubba. Me and Bubba, we go to university. Right? Me and Bubba are at university.
I just want to say, bro, this isn't the question that I'm asking. I'm not asking like what is an ulterior hypothesis as to why this man was able to portray the information that he was asking. I'm saying like, why is your methodology like the methodology that you described, like the many witnesses and all that stuff, why is it that this has to be the case, but there is absolutely not some other possible explanation that is completely naturalistic?
No, I'm granting that is a possibility. I'm just saying that considering the weight of the evidence, we've exhausted the naturalistic explanations because it's not just one hadith bubble. I'm just giving you one example that we don't take, because the main point you said before is that, oh, you're trusting it because Muhammad said so. But I'm explaining to you, it's not just Muhammad, it's just him and a bunch of his companions, like tens and hundreds of them, are all relating the same thing with authentic chains, right? So that's the point that I'm trying to get across with that hadith. But if you ask me about, okay, why do I believe he's an angel? Well, because the man like makes prophecies about the future as well. In other hadith we see that. Or the man knows things that is impossible for him to know. In other hadith he's portrayed as having knowledge that he would have no way of knowing naturalistically. So it's not just like one hadith. We take it holistically and then we understand, okay, this man who no one knows, who has no signs of travel, who doesn't live with anyone, like no one goes around and sees, okay, where does this man live? They try to and they can't find him, right? Like, what's he doing? Is he hiding him under his bunker? How does he know all these things? All these things together make it more likely, like, it exhausts the possibility that it's just some random guy spilling knowledge. Therefore, it's more rational to believe, like, what Muhammad is saying. But we also have other arguments, like, a priori. Do you get what I mean?
So, you know how I said at the beginning that, like, when you take a supernatural claim, and then it just becomes mostly on faith, like, you just have faith that this really happened, sometimes you're able to take, well, you would agree that some people are willing to take a much bigger leap of faith. Like, someone can hear the name of Jesus for the first time and hear the story about him and immediately become a Christian. That's a pretty big leap of faith. You agree?
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. And then there's other people that are more like me, because I'm a schmuck and I'm a skeptic, that like have to know about the history of the church, whether or not the Bible's reliable, whether or not it's possible for a man to be God or walk on water.
So Bubba, you're describing two types of faith. One is what's called blind faith. One is like actual faith. What me and you are trying to work with is actual faith, because people have this idea that faith is just blind, like you just jump in blind. No, faith is based on evidence. We believe faith is us as Muslims. We don't just take things because someone said it or because whatever reason. No, we have to have evidence backing up what we believe. We believe the two go hand in hand, right? So for me, faith is like I'll tell you what it is. It's more like when I see like everything being paused, then I know there has to be some type of ultimate cause. I can make like the argument deductively, like the kalam or whatever. That's my evidence. But then the faith is for me to believe like, okay, that cause actually cares about me. Can I know that with certainty? Can I prove that with certainty that ultimate creator, that unmoved mover, is the God of Islam? No, I can't prove it with certainty, with 100%. No, I can't. I take that on faith. That's faith. Yeah. Right? But it's not without evidence. It's not like I'm just pulling it out of my ass. Oh, you know, this random guy, he loves me, he's up in the sky. I have good reasons. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I 100% do. The question that I was going to say that was following, like, the two people that we described, right? One who's, like, complete crazy blind faith, and the other one who has more intellectual reasons. Where is the line that we would draw, basically, where we would say, this is enough evidence to have a reasonable amount of faith? And I would first of all argue this is dependent on the person. But for perhaps general standards in which, like if we were to generally apply a rule on what is the methodology that
It
we
would just be
accept?
probabilistic, I think. I just think, for me personally, it would just be based off like probabilities,
Yeah,
right?
for
So me being a fallibilist, for me to accept a proposition, any proposition, I would just have to be, it would just have to be shown that it's more probable to believe in it than not. It's more rational to accept this proposition than not, right? And what that's in general, like it's the same thing with scientific claims. We accept a certain hypothesis until we have better probabilities for another hypothesis. Then we run with that hypothesis until that's disproved. You get what I mean? So that works the same way with me, where I would say, look, until we have a better explanation, or until we have a more convincing explanation that has more explanatory scope and doesn't like multiply entities out of necessity, then we have no reason to accept some other proposition. Does that make sense? It's really just probabilistic.
Yeah, dude, dude, I've loved this conversation. I really have. It's probably the best I've had in like weeks, because that's actually a great standard to apply, which would be completely subjective on the person. Is when you personally, like as an individual, say that this is more reasonable to believe in than not reasonable to believe in. That's something that could be like a reasonable case to say that like.
Yeah, because Baba, like I think William Lane Craig, he says this as well. Like when he's making the kalam, he says, "I'm not saying that these premises are true, like known with certainty. I'm saying that these premises are more plausible than the negations, meaning it's more rational to affirm them than to disaffirm them." And that's how he makes his argument, right? So even though the premise is like deductively sound, like you get the conclusion with certainty, the actual evidence for each premise is actually inductive. It's based on the probabilistic framework, and I'm the same way. Does that make sense? And it's the same with all aspects of life. Like if you see, if I walk into my house and I see a window broken, I'm not going to jump to a dragon came in and broke the window. That's not as likely as, for example, a burglar came in, or a cat broke in, or my wife got angry and accidentally threw something at the window and it broke. Like there are more like reasonable explanations, and based on all of these competing hypotheses, which one is more rational? Which one is more plausible? Which one is it more likely to be the case? Do you know what I mean? And we examine the evidence like that.
Yeah, I do. It's just like these are questions that I've asked hundreds of people. You've seen me do it with dozens of people on my YouTube channel, which I've like people just don't have any answer for. And this is the first like most reasonable answer I've heard so far, because that's why I said this is like the best conversation I've had in the last fucking
no problem, bro.
yeah, that I've had the last fucking 4 weeks. Just because.
Yeah, no problem, bro. No problem, bro. I appreciate that, man. But Bubba, I would say like, look, really, me and you are not too far apart. Like realistically, like right now, where I am and where you are is not that far apart. The main I think difference between me and you is you like being skeptical of, or not sure of, or like have not fully examined like the claims of Islam, like the claims of prophethood, or the claims of prophecy, or the claims of reliability or inimitability, or whatever like claims there are to try and prove the truthfulness of Islam, like the positive evidence. I would say you should get into that and try and like look into those claims and examine them yourself, and then you can do what we said, which is say, okay, well, what's more reasonable? Is it more reasonable that this guy's like predicting these things and they all happened, and like he's just guessing it all, or is it more reasonable that what he's saying is true and he is like actually a prophet? What's more like likely, right?
Yes.
But I would say a good starting point for you, Bubba, is the paper I gave you in the side chat. It's written by a brother named Basim something. I read it like a year ago, but just for you, I like reread it like when you texted me, because I was like, okay, Bubba's a idiot. I need to make sure I got my points on point, right? And I would recommend you to read it. I think it's free as well. You can download it for free off academia.com.
Yeah, I've been trying to download it.
And
I've been trying to download it for the last 30 minutes, and it wants me to sign in and maybe change my password and a bunch of stupid bullshit. But I'm getting to it.
yeah, but that's good, bro. But I think even if you don't sign in, there's ways of like. I think there's a website called like, and cause I do it as well, by the way. Yeah, there's a website called, and then you just put the DOI of the paper, and then it should pop up. But I think that's mainly for. I'm not sure if it works for philosophy papers though, but it does work for other stuff. Because I use it because I do research as well, by the way. Like so, I.
I'm definitely not putting this part of the YouTube video.
Yeah, that's fine.
What was I going to say? I was in the middle of saying something. It was that so here's a proposition I have for you. It's a very reasonable hypothetical. It's that, let's say that I have a standard of evidence in which I consider, like, let's say I consider 20 eyewitnesses to be a reliable number who claim something supernatural. Then I would actually believe that the supernatural thing actually happened. But let's say that there were 20 eyewitnesses who witnessed Jesus and they claim him to be God, but then there were 20 Muslims who claim that Jesus isn't God. Then at that point, like, there's a contradiction in beliefs in which I
this is a good question. This is a good question. This is a good question, right? So let's examine it like in reality, right? So let's say you have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, right? And then you have, let's say, Abdullah, Muhammad, Ahmad, and Yusuf, right? And one of them is claiming, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are saying, oh, Jesus is divine, he's God, he's X, Y, Z. And Matthew and Abdullah and the others are saying, no, he's just a prophet, he's not actually God, right? Okay, so we go, on this basis, when you have two sets of conflicting reports, what do? We examine the reliability of each narrator, like, independently. So we go to Matthew, and we go to Mark, and we go to Luke, and we go to John, and we say, okay, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, where did you guys get your sources from? And Matthew and Luke will tell me, actually, I just copied Mark. And John will tell me, I got it from some random guy, and I don't really know who he is, some anonymous guy. So I'll say, okay, John is not really reliable, he's getting it from some anonymous guy. Matthew and Luke are copying Mark. Okay, let me go to Mark, let me see where Mark is getting it from. And Mark will tell me, I actually just got it from this place Q. It's the sayings of Jesus. And okay, I ask him, okay, well, what about, who's this Q? Where did you get it from? Is Q reliable? And he tells me, actually, I really don't have any idea about Q. We don't really know anything about it. So then I was like, okay, well, this is kind of also anonymous, and Matthew and Luke are kind of just copying Mark. So maybe these guys I'm not really convinced by their claim, right? So then I go to Abdullah, Yusuf, and Ahmad, and I ask them, okay, well, you're saying Jesus is not God. What's your evidence for that? And they tell me, well, actually, it's not us that said it, it's the Prophet Muhammad who said it, and these are the evidences why we believe the Prophet Muhammad is correct. He made these prophecies, he made these miracles, me and a bunch of my friends saw him, and he did X, Y, Z. And I say, okay, this makes more sense. This is probably like more reasonable to believe in. Do you get what I mean? Like, you can go through each thing like individually and suss it out.
Yeah, I do, and that's actually probably a perfect answer too. And for the record, I also subscribe to the Q theory when it comes to the Gospels.